Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. My name is John Veda. I am a resident here in Papillion, have been for over 10 years. I retired and moved to Papillion because of looking at the area and going on the website and seeing things that were offered, and it seemed to be like it was going to be more of a family community. And so we thought, okay, if we have a camper and we're not moving into an area that has the homeowners association, we could find property in Papillion and park our camper on our property since we have a large investment in it. When we talked to our real estate agent, they said that our property would allow that. We went online, tried to look at the codes, and they're very hard to look at and find and understand. So we didn't see anything that would say that he wasn't right, so we purchased our house. We've been parking our RV in our backyard on a slab for over 10 years with no issues. It is in a fenced area, and the issue that I am having right now and trying to deal with is that we had this issue with this person going around, which I want to thank the city administrator, Dan Hoynes, for looking at that and adjusting that and dropping our citations that we've had and start all over again. In doing that, I'm wondering if it's okay for us to park there if nobody complains. What is the problem? I've talked to a lot of people around the city, a lot of city employees. I've talked to the police and the fire department employees. Doesn't seem to be a safety issue. A lot of them told me they don't even notice the campers in the yard when they go by. And there's only been a few complaints over a year's time anyway. And usually that's because a person has one parked where people can't see around it to make a turn or something like that. So that's one of the things that I'm struggling with and why I'm here with the Papillion RV group. My next question would be to the council is, if it's legal for the Class B and C to park on their properties, what's changed? Why are you making it more restrictive for them to park on the properties now? Talking to the police and the fire department, there's no issues. So why is the city council, the safety committee, telling us that, you know, they're gonna make it illegal? How are you gonna enforce that? You're gonna have a guy 3 or 4 houses down, buy a house, sees his neighbor has a Class B or C, so he's gonna buy one. Then someone's gonna say, hey, you can't have that there, and they're gonna complain, and then now you got an issue. So I don't think that that's fair. The other thing that I have is the safety committee, when they looked at this, I don't think that they could really be partial to that. Reason being is because a couple of people on the safety committee, they live in an area where there's a homeowners association, and it seems like that's what they want the whole city to be. Well, we moved in an area that didn't have homeowners association just for that reason. So why are we going to be singled out now to be like the areas that have the homeowners association? The other thing would be that the people that are using their RVs right now that are supposedly having it on their property 1 or 2 days, you're telling us that we can only go camping a couple times a month. Well, I'm retired. If I want to go every weekend and I bring it in to load it up, that's going to create a problem. I have it on my property now. It's loaded up, ready to go. It's behind the fence. It's safe. It doesn't look bad. People can't see it unless they drive by from the side of the house. They might look at it. So I don't understand the reasoning. I think that,
1 minute.
Thank you. I think that the whole thing boils down to this. Papillion is trying to be too restrictive when it comes to recreational vehicles. And I think that if you would look more at some of the other areas like Lincoln, Bellevue, like that, that are having different kinds of codes, you'd have more families willing to move in, because a lot of them will now know that they can't have an RV, and that might have them move somewhere else.
Thank you very much. Next.
I have a quick question.
Mr. Glover.
Did you say how long your camper was?
32 foot.
If you'd state your name for the record.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stubbe?
Yeah, Mayor, with the first speaker, I just want to make a comment, and it comes down to is that why now? And part of it is that we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for an individual that used the city as an instrument, essentially, to retaliate against other people. You know, typically codes and ordinances are set up to be complaint-driven. The city doesn't drive around and look for people that are violating particular codes and ordinances. It's complaint-driven. So if an individual, a neighbor, complains about something, then we're obligated to go out and do it. But we're here today because somebody got upset because a neighbor was concerned about, you know, what happened, and they went around, and I was Councilman Engberg that really worked with the administration to try to get all of those violations removed, and I want to thank Mr. Engberg for that.
Mr. Ingberg, do you have?
I don't have my checkbook with me. I wasn't going to bring this up until the next meeting on the 16th, but just real briefly, in case you don't know, and that, since you touched on it, I met with Dan Hoyes and proposed a different enforcement procedure, because regardless of length, what really bothered me was the fact that the way this all came about. And to me, code enforcement has to do with quality of life issues. And one person, because they readily admitted why they did it, decided to go around and turn all of you folks in, I think was totally unfair. His quality of life was not affected by someone that lived a mile away from him, that never goes by their house, never even sees the RV. I thought it was totally unfair. So just real briefly, on 14th of April, I think, Mayor, it was instituted, and all the complaints that existed up to that point are wiped off the books. You start over. Doesn't make your vehicle legal today, but on the other hand, logic tells me that we had 8 RV complaints in 2 years, and that tells me that I'm not sure, and I may be wrong, I don't want to get into this tonight, but perhaps, even though as Mr. Flores would tell you, the law is the law, and he's right, neighbors, if they're comfortable with it, are probably not going to call it in now. And the people that were doing the revenge thing, which isn't why we're in business, it's not why we have code enforcement, to seek revenge against people, because I feel slighted. Now they're required to put in, when they put in a complaint, provide their name and their address and a way to contact them. And they still, doesn't take away from anonymity, because if someone was bad enough to find out who complained, they could go through a legal method to do that. But what this will tell the city staff when they see the complaints, is this revenge driven, or is this somebody who's directly affected by this and make some judgments? So hopefully that will stop. And I thank you for bringing it up tonight. I was going to wait till next time, but if you have any questions, I'll be around after if you want to ask about it.
Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Donna Veda, and I typed mine out, so I'm just going to read it off. And we have talked to Mr. Engberg. Thank you for your help. I was going to say thank you for waiving the citations. We appreciate that. I don't really understand why we're looking at these amendments tonight, because similar ones were brought to the Planning Commission meeting in February, and they unanimously voted them down. That city group felt that they were too restrictive. We were hoping that the next item that we would see discussed at a city council meeting regarding RVs would be the proposal that our group submitted in March to change the city code to allow people to park their campers and trailers over 20 feet on their own personal property, as long as it was done safely. Unfortunately, that isn't why we're here tonight. I think that most of the people here are just like my husband John and I, and we're just two regular people who have worked, and We wanted to purchase a nice camper to enjoy it for our free time. We were Boy Scout leaders for many years and went camping with our sons and other Boy Scouts in tents every month. They're shorter than 20 feet. After all these years camping in all kinds of weather in tents, we looked forward to being able to stay in a camper up off the ground and with some of the comforts of home. We worked some more, saved our money, and we were able to purchase a camper. We have enjoyed many weekend trips and summer vacations with family and friends in our camper. The main reason that we purchased our home, as my husband said 10 years ago, is because we had a second driveway behind the house and it was just perfect for parking our camper. With our investment in our camper, even if we could find a place to rent locally, which seems to be pretty much impossible, we don't want to park it in a storage lot. Other campers are parked inches away from each other, and there's a greater chance for someone to run into it, have someone break into it, or have little critters decide to make their home in it. Keeping it on our own personal property, out of the way of others, is a way for us to keep an eye on it and make sure that no one tampers with it. We have worked hard to buy and maintain our camper, and we want to make sure that it is taken care of and kept safe. In summary, I would like to point out to the City Council that I don't see a problem with having personal property kept at our homes as long as it doesn't affect the safety of other people. There might be problems with some people's, how they keep their campers, but I think the majority of us look out for other people. An RV that is longer than 20 feet doesn't make it more unsafe than others that are shorter than 20 feet, if you can even find one of those. Yes, the city code does need to be changed, but not in the way you are proposing with these amendments tonight. I would like to close with a thought to the council members. Please listen to the citizens of your city and vote according to our requests. We are the ones that are paying you to represent us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents? I would request that there is no a motion, no clapping, no comments. So I want to respect the speakers in all positions. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Alan Brummel, and I'm here to speak as an opponent to this ordinance 1764. I would like to start by looking at the proposal packet section listed as synopsis. We see that the City Council's Public Safety Committee recommends that the current ordinance be made more restrictive for Class C motorhomes that are over 20 feet in length. We see that on March 7, this committee recommended that additional amendments be presented for City Council consideration. Under the synopsis section, we also see that on March 15, the Papillion RV Group provided an alternative proposal to amend the zoning ordinance regarding boats, recreational vehicles, and trailers that is generally more permissive than the current regulations and the proposed amendments by the Public Safety Committee. This synopsis section highlights the essence of our RV group, citizens group's grievance with the city of Papillion. We came to the city in 2016 asking to dialogue after finding out about the current restrictive ordinance. We ended up being penalized by the safety committee and ultimately this city council, if you approve this ordinance, by having more restrictive or a more restrictive ordinance just for starting the conversation. It appears that by daring to ask why city ordinances reclassify RV trailers as commercial vehicles and restrict them to being under 20 feet in length, we, the citizens, are the targets of governmental discrimination. The next section of this packet lists the physical impact as not applicable. Our group disagrees with this assumption. The monetary impact may not be felt by the city when changing this ordinance, but hundreds of RV owners who have invested and improved their properties will feel the impact, since they will not be able to utilize their improved property for their RV trailers and motorhomes. Next, in the recommendation section, we see that the city staff and safety committee recommends introduction and approval of ordinance 1764 as proposed even though the City Planning Commission at their February 22 meeting unanimously recommended denial of this ordinance. For this process to happen and continue to this point, there must be a huge disconnect between the citizens of Papillion and the city administration, city council, safety committee, and ultimately you, the city council and mayor. In the background section, we're told that in 1995 and 1999, the zoning ordinance definition for recreational vehicle included both motorized vehicles and non-motorized trailers, and limited the length of trailers parked in residential districts to 20 feet. According to this section, recreational vehicles other than campers and travel trailers were not permitted to be parked on residential lots because they were classified as heavy commercial vehicles. Then in 2010, campers, fifth wheels, and pop-up campers were removed from the definition of recreational vehicle and placed in the definition for trailers, effectively making them commercial vehicles under the City of Papillion rules. According to this section, the changes were based on recommendations of the police department and to address citizen complaints that trailer regulations were inconsistent. We agree that they're inconsistent. However, as much as our group has researched, we have yet to find any evidence in city records showing police recommendations or citizen complaints from that time, or records showing when or why the 20-foot limit was instituted. It appears that the city has slowly, quietly, and arbitrarily been amending, reclassifying, and adding restrictions to RV ordinances over the past years. It also appears that with the recent unusual surge in 2016 of complaints against RV owners, that an ultimate city goal of prohibiting property owners from keeping RV trailers and their motorhomes on their own private property in our city is coming to fruition.
1 minute.
Finally, in section 2, we see comments that the Public Safety Committee reviewed the regulations for parking recreational vehicles, and in response to input received from citizens, then approved a motion to request an amendment to the zoning regulations to restrict the parking of Class C motorhomes that exceeded 20 feet in length. While the words in this section make it appear that the Safety Committee was doing what the citizens requested, the reality is that the committee disregarded the actual citizens' proposal, and instead the committee recommended an amendment that is diametrically the opposite of what the citizens, our group, proposed and requested. But Mr. Mayor and City Council members, with all the above information, it's not just about the physical RV trailers. It's about the people. You see in front of you people from all walks of life and all kinds of socioeconomic positions who have gathered together to ask you to reconsider your current path on this issue. You see in front of you people who care enough about their city to meet with you and exercise their First Amendment rights. The person you don't see here is Dwayne. Dwayne had a nice trailer parked on his property, wanted to speak out and tell you about this ordinance, that it's going in the wrong direction. On the way into this building, he fell and had a life-threatening injury and passed away. So you see, the decisions that you make here really do affect the lives of the people who elected you. In conclusion, I am publicly asking that my elected representatives, Council Members Gaines and Engberg, vote against Ordinance 1764. I'm also asking that my representatives instead introduce and support with a second so that this can be discussed by the entire council in public. We ask that you introduce and support the Papillion RV Group alternate proposal to amend the zoning ordinance regarding boats, recreational vehicles, and trailers that is generally more permissive than the current regulations and proposal amended by the Safety Committee.
Time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hello, my name is Tim Puckett. I live on Driftwood Drive in Papillion. I've had a lot of words thrown around like a safety hazard, doesn't fit with the neighborhood or whatever. And the one that sticks out with me is the eyesore one that I've heard so much about. To me, an eyesore is when I drive down Highway 370 and I have to look at Shadow Lake, Warner Baseball Park, the new subdivisions that Papillion is building, the new shopping center at 96th Street, and then all these new large apartment buildings such as Titan Springs, the Portal Road luxury apartments. I moved to Papillion about 20 years ago. We love the view of the cornfields, the wildlife, the turkey and deer that used to be in the country along Highway 370. I like the feel of the small town atmosphere, the close-knit community, and family values. Although to me, these new buildings are eyesores, I miss the way things used to be. I understand about city growth and changing times and improving the economy. However, not everyone on the city council appreciates the distinction between personal opinion and what is best for the citizens of the city. And then what is eyesore to Mr. Tom Bumgard? Jet skis, trailers, boats, campers over 20 feet. It's hard to find a camper under 20 feet for a family of 5. Times are changing. We all have to look at things we don't like to look at. For me, it's big, ugly buildings. For Tom Bumgard, it's clean, registered campers on parked concrete driveways with a proper setback from the sidewalk, a concrete driveway that was installed with a permit from the city specifically for this use. With all the imposed restrictions and ordinances, even the small town family-friendly atmosphere is being destroyed. Camping is about spending quality time with families. If the current ordinance with or without these amendments stay in effect, I will basically be forced to sell my camper rather than to pay additional money to store it where the city will be profiting from the taxes. Additionally, campers are a huge investment, and I, like most people, want my property to be with me on my own land. But I feel it is my right as a homeowner, whether it's a 20-foot camper or a 40-foot camper. My family likes camping at Walnut Creek, but we will never camp there again, and we'll tell everyone else no to camping at Walnut Creek if the council votes for these amendments. So please, city council members, bring back the small town feeling that brought me to Papillion. Let us enjoy camping in Papillion parks. Let the citizens of the city own property and recreational vehicles and allow us to exercise the right to park them on our driveways. In closing, please let me keep my camper at home and accessible so I can be a free citizen with the ability to go camping on a moment's notice and enjoy Papillion parks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, good evening. My name's Lorene Renante. I'm here with my husband, John Harshbarger. I'm a lifelong Papillion resident. I was on the bridge taking pictures back with Mr. Moser when that bridge first came about. But regardless, I believe in personal property rights, and my trailer, or our trailer, is my personal property. We love our trailer, and we have made a sizable investment both inside and out, and we expect to enjoy our trailer when we want and to provide proper maintenance when needed at our residential address. So I've just got a couple of points. I'll try to keep this pithy. Point number one, I don't believe that the city of Papillion nor my neighbor would have the right to regulate or legislate how often I can take my camper out. In other words, the 48 hours, nobody gets to tell me when I can go on vacation or when I can't, how long it's going to take me to fill it up, and how long it's going to take me to unload it, and what I want to do with it. Also, I would like to know is, when would that clock start on that 48 hours? Is somebody going to come by and monitor me? Is it a he said, she said thing? Is somebody going to take a picture? You know, what if I move it within that 48-hour period, come back, bring it in? I mean, it's ridiculous, no matter whether it's 2 times a month or whether it's every 7 days. It's just ludicrous. That interferes with my personal life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, in my opinion. My point number 2 would be is I would like somebody to help me understand how the city is able to redefine the definition that the state of Nebraska defines as a commercial heavy vehicle. The state of Nebraska, where I pay my taxes and register my vehicle, it is registered at the top of my registration to the state of Nebraska, not to the city of Papillion. It says that any trailer or semi-trailer that has a gross weight, including load thereon, or more than 9,000 pounds, of which is designated, used, or maintained for transportation of persons or property for hire, compensation, or profit or designed, used or maintained primarily for the transportation of property. Commercial trailer does not include cabin trailers, farm trailers, fertilizer trailers, or utility trailers. And just for a quick, brief thing, a cabin trailer, the state of Nebraska classifies that into 4 sections. They classify it as a trailer or semi-trailer that is designed, constructed, and equipped as a dwelling place, living abode, or sleeping place. Cabin trailer shall not mean a trailer or semi-trailer that is permanently attached to real estate or modular housing. So then a camping trailer, a mobile home, a manufactured home, which is not part of our really discussion, and a travel trailer all fit under the distinction of that they must not be more than 102 inches in width, which is 8.5 feet, and not more than 40 feet long from hitch to bumper. And that's where we all are. So this whole 20-foot box thing it's just not reasonable. The city of Papillion must get in touch with the reality that when you go out to purchase a trailer, whether it's used or not, the categories for the class A's, B's, C's, you're way out of touch with the foot. Those aren't existence. I don't know where that 20-foot came in. So with that, that is all that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is John Worthman. I've been in Papillion for 28 years. I live on a corner lot. It's so my RV's in the backyard on a cement pad, cement driveway, all of which were installed at considerable expense. Like the rest of the people said, you're probably going to hear that a lot. I pay taxes on these every year, and if I can't park the trailer on there in this area, I'll be paying taxes on a pad that I can't use. It's bare. The 20-foot limit is absolutely ridiculous. A little casita or a scamp, that's a single axle trailer with no toilet in it or anything like that if you're measuring from the tire, back spare tire to the tongue. And you're gonna have to really work, or a pop-up. Some of those are under 20 feet. The 20-foot thing is ridiculous. If we're forced to move out to a crowded RV lot like was discussed earlier, we risk to be damaged, vandalism, theft, and the rodents are terrible. We like the security of having the RV where you can look out there and see it, go out, and if you've got a motor home, you want to go out and start it in the wintertime. You don't want it sitting 40 miles away out in the middle of a bunch of snow where you can't get to it and start it up, because that's not good mechanically. I asked the council members, I'm not being sarcastic, you've all got nice cars, boats. How would you like to be forced to go out in the middle of a field and park your car over the winter and not be able to start it up, and the mice would get into it, and you can't take care of it, can't service it, and you have to drive 20 miles to get there every time you want to go out there? I don't think you'd feel warm and fuzzy, none of you would, about what your expensive cars would be. Next, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the fact you want us to have a model city, but I don't think we're going to make it, because I think that this is given a reflection of all the people that are here tonight, that Papillion is unfriendly to RVers. It's very obvious that there's a couple on your committee that have told us point blank, I don't like RVs, they shouldn't be there. So that doesn't leave us with a good taste in our mouth either. The family outings, I think we would like to see, because it's grandpa and grandma, the kids, mom and dad, they're out there, and the people that are on Social Security can't afford to stay in motels and hotels, and when you have your camper, you can feed the kids, so you're going to reduce the amount of trips that people are going to take because they can't get out there, they can't afford to pay for an RV storage lot, and you're going to be hurting the real friendly Papillion that we know right now, because you can see by the evidence here. The complaints, look how many people are here. I've heard that you've had a few complaints up in the last few months. Look at how many complaints you've got right now. I don't think that the complaints offset the pleasures that the people have here and want to have their RVs where they can see them and take care of them. And the safety thing, I'm not trying to include anybody in on this, but you go over on Jackson, go up on Gunther, and look at the safety items where a truck almost rolled down into a schoolyard from a contractor up there. And you want to worry about our RVs in our own yard that are locked in, blocked, and so on. So I really feel funny about this group here, but I feel that it's a couple of them, and we know who they are. I'm going to be real blunt. When it comes time to vote, we're going to be taking care of that end of it. Thank you.
Don't leave yet, Mr. Mumgard.
Okay. You brought up something that's been brought up the second time, and I need to ask a question so I get your views on this. The backyard. You have your RV in the backyard.
My trailer is over 20 feet.
Okay, you've got a trailer back there.
Yes.
Okay, as the planning director had indicated, there's some question, I can tell you there's questions that council members have raised internally about whether we should treat the backyard different than the driveway.
I know, we watched him give the demonstration one time.
So let me ask your view. Two things. One, why do you have it in the backyard rather than on your driveway?
Well, number one, I live close to that school, and it looks like a funeral procession at 310 and 410, okay? And they come flying by them right there by Trumbull Park School. And that's all routed, and it's one way, and trying to get in and back a trailer in and that kind of thing out of your driveway on that hill. I live on, there's a hill in front, and I've got a wide driveway, which I put a pad there initially, and because of that, and because of the protection, and it's kind of out of sight back there, and you drove by it, and I talked to you about this, and it's clean. We mow around it, we move it, I wash it, and it isn't an eyesore. When they talk about eyesores, you make a tour of the city and you'll see some eyesores, but it's not the RVs.
Okay, now the second question was, well, how do you get it there? And I think you get it there off of a side street because you're on a corner lot.
It's
Right?
Gunther. I'm on,
Yeah.
my front's on Madison, and the side street on the corner is on Gunther. And I can back up there and back it right in. And I don't block it. I always wait for not at the school time, so.
Well, okay. I guess one question that I think some council members need to still find an answer to is whether we should treat the backyard differently than the driveway, and particularly in a situation such as yours, when the backyard, basically you just have a driveway off of a side street and park it in the
That's true.
backyard. Do you think we should treat those backyards differently?
Well, at one time when he showed that, I thought, well, yeah, okay, but my trailer is over 20 feet, so it doesn't make any difference where I park it. I object to that because I could take the tire off, and if I cut the tongue off, it'd still be 24 feet.
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous to that 20 foot. If anybody here has trailers, they know that there's no way. There's these car tandem trailers that they put a car on. Those are over 20 feet. And I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, if you want to camp and you're taking mom and dad out, and I took my dad up north, and I had a camper at that time. I've always had campers since I've been there. And, you know, it was nice to take him along. He enjoyed it, and he never, you know, the kids are going to remember this forever. And they'll take pictures, and they'll always be talking about what they did with mom and dad in their trailer. That's different than going to a motel where they can sit and watch TV all the time and play their electric games. They're out there running around the parks and everything else when you're there.
Did that answer your side yard question, Mr. Mumford?
Yeah, I'll just thank you very much.
Okay.
I think that's a question, I'll just point out, that's a question that in my discussions I've had with council members, I'm sure, don't think we have a consensus answer to, whether there ought to be a different rule for the backyard than there is for the driveway. So I'll just ask, thank you, you've answered that.
Okay.
Anybody else that has an answer, I'd like to hear.
I still think it would be wrong for the rest of them.
Mr. Jaworski,
Okay.
do you have a question?
John, I just got a quick question. How long is your trailer? I'm keeping track of everybody.
24 feet.
Mr.
24.
Mumgard, can you turn yours
Thank
off?
you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Next, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, administration. I don't have any prepared remarks.
Can you state your name for the record?
My name is Tom Osland.
Thank you.
I've only been a resident of Papillion for about 30 35, 36 years paying taxes and voting whenever I was allowed to in the city elections, and some of the results are sitting here tonight. The taxes that I've paid for the city and state and et cetera have gone for betterment. Just a few scribbles on your papers that we were given. Why does this ordinance exist? Is it for beautification? Is it for commercial traffic? I don't understand why this zoning ordinance exists, and if the council were to completely wipe that out, we won't have to deal with proposal amendment
If we
number
could take
one.
phone calls outside the chamber, that would be appreciated.
If the council eliminated the ordinance referring to recreational vehicles, you wouldn't have amendment number one. Amendment number two, I currently have an RV. It's parked in a storage lot, which is a half mile from my house. I do have to bring it home to load it. Now, I'm wondering if I should apply for the waiver under amendment number two, which would give me longer time to load my vehicle. I don't have it parked at home now, but if do I need a waiver, then I can have it sit in my driveway for a little bit longer, which brings us to proposal number three. Who is going to run around with their stopwatch to check to see how many times you're in your driveway, how long you're going to be there? 2016 was my first year of full retirement. I used my camper 8 times in 2016, 3 times in June. Oh, there was a trip in May also, but 3 times in June, twice in July, once in August, and also in September and November. Each time I would bring it home and load what I needed to load into it. After the trip, I would come home and unload it and then take it back to the storage. The timeline in proposal 3 kind of wonders me. If the reason for the proposal, what this ordinance is supposed to do is to make the streets safer, is it to make the streets more beautiful? Is it to not inconvenience the residents? Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but your bike races inconvenience me more than somebody's RV in their yard. The water slide inconvenienced me more than, as retired, I've had to start to walk more. So I'm seeing the RVs because this is an issue. And we have a bigger problem with traffic flow. And you all know this street out here for picking up students that says no parking either side, but yet there is. But you just avoid that. If you don't like looking at RVs, avoid them. But I enjoy it. I enjoy living in Papillion. And I enjoy my council members. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Cindy Robarge, and I'm going to probably repeat some of the comments that were made this evening, but bear with me. When my husband and I decided to move back to Nebraska in 1997, there were 2 things important to us. The first was to find a city with a great school system, and the other was a city with RV-friendly neighborhoods. We drove through a particular Papillion neighborhood and were very excited to see multiple RVs, fifth wheels, motorhomes, and boats. We found a house and made an offer, but before doing so, had our agent check covenants to ensure that we could park our RV on the pad that was poured alongside the house. So for the last 20 years, we've enjoyed the security of having our RV on our own property for which we pay taxes on, and an RV for which we pay taxes. When we purchased our current fifth wheel camper, which is 37.5 feet long and juts out from the side of our house about 6 feet, it cost more actually than our first home. Our camper looks nice and is better kept than some of the houses in our neighborhood. There should not be a size limit to campers or trailers if there is no safety concern, such as parking on or obstructing the sidewalks, or on a concrete lot, obstructing the view of traffic. Personally and professionally speaking, as a realtor since 2002, I can tell you that buyers do look for neighborhoods that do allow campers and boats. Again, that information is usually found in the subdivision's covenants. The campers, in my professional opinion, do not devalue the neighborhood. I urge you to take the time necessary to review in detail the current ordinance. I'm sure you will all agree that it's in need of an overhaul. Thank you.
Next.
Good evening. My name is Bruce DeYoung, and I'm a resident of Papillion, but I live in Eagle Ridge. I live in a SID, as you all know. I've lived there for about 8 years. Prior to moving to Papillion, I was in the Army for 26 and a half years. We've enjoyed camping, We've enjoyed camping, but most of the time it's been in a tent. You know, my wife, our 2 daughters, we camped every summer. Every time we did a PCS move, of which was 12, we moved cross country. We moved from Texas to Florida, Florida up to Colorado. Every time we moved, we camped. We enjoyed camping that much. But one thing we looked at before we bought in Eagle Ridge was having a parking spot for a camper. 2 doors down from us, just across the street, was a camper that was parked there for 8 years. And it wasn't, I mean, it was before my time, but it had been parked there for 8 years. I know this because that was a camper that I was going to buy. You know, I had asked him, I said, hey, are you interested in selling? Because he had never moved it. And when my wife and I went down there to look at it, his daughters had told him that, no, you know, we sure like to keep the camper. So they kind of changed their mind. No harm, no foul. I have a 27.5-foot, no slide outs camper trailer that is in really good condition. It only been used 10 times when I bought it. I do not store it at my house. I store it actually at an off-site storage space. But when it comes time to putting it into operation every year, you know, you winterize it in the fall. When you have to de-winterize it, you check the wheel bearings, you do all the services, you wash it, you clean it, check the roof, condition it. There's a lot of effort that goes into taking care of RVs. You know, they're an investment, as folks here have attested to. Several of them are a lot more expensive than mine. I mean, you're talking $50,000, $60,000 for some of these. To park them at a storage lot or on a yard or in a grass field that has mice or varmint or something that's going to destroy the wiring, the hoses, things that allow them to function and for us to enjoy them is just, in my view, unrealistic. You know, one thing that I've been thinking about as listening to folks talk is that you know, this body, and you know, we don't have a voice being in Eagle Ridge with regard to who gets elected and who doesn't, but this is almost the same as a homeowners association issue. You know, do we allow campers? Do we not allow campers? How long should they look? You know, and so forth. I think I heard someone talk about the bridge over 84th Street earlier today. Talking about that bridge, and it was built in the 70s. You know, folks have used it and everything, and yeah, it worked great in the 70s. Well, 18, 20 feet for a camper was great in the 70s, but it certainly isn't today. So I would just offer that. The other thing I heard was a lot of these complaints are fueled by the mayor's hotline. The mayor's hotline is a great idea. I certainly support that. I think that's a way for communication to flow upwards and backwards. And thank you, Mr. Sturzma, for the prompt responses to my emails. That was awesome. But one thing that I see with that is that it's too easy for folks to complain. I like the idea that you're asking them about where they live. But one other question that needs to be asked is, what's the issue? What's the safety issue? If it's a safety issue, what is it? Is it blocking a sidewalk? Is it impeding a view? What specifically is the issue? I can tell you that cars blocking sidewalks are probably more important and probably more of an impediment than anybody's RV parking. My RV, like I said, is 27 feet. My driveway from the garage door to the sidewalk is 34 feet. I'm about 5 feet short of the sidewalk. I do not live on a corner. I'm not near a stop sign.
1 minute.
But, thank you, sir. But I do think that, that needs to be considered. I use my camper 8 to 10 times a year, but this ordinance before you tonight doesn't allow me to enjoy my property. It seems that, the classification is inconsistent, and you all have mentioned that, but it's also inconsistent with state law. And I've heard somebody talk about that. But one thing that's also mentioned in state law is Legislative Bill 276, and that specifically speaks to preemption. I'm not a lawyer, but my interpretation and my understanding anyway is that preemption occurs when a conflict is evident between statewide law and a local ordinance or rule. So I think that's a consideration that we need to take into account. And somebody already mentioned that it does not include cabin trailers on the definition from state law, and the 4 classes of which one is a travel trailer. I've served 26 and a half years, as I mentioned. I had discussed, and we talked about moving to Millard, Bellevue, or Glenwood. I still don't feel that I would change my mind, based on the services and based on how this community is today. But I would like that some of the fairness, again, I live in an SID, but the fairness be injected in this body, and that my consideration, as well as the person driving by and pointing out my camper as a violation to an ordinance, that my consideration is also considered.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Next.
Hello, thank you. My name is Christopher Gibbs. I'm also from Eagle Ridge. We moved into Eagle Ridge in about 2005, and shortly thereafter we put a third drive-in, if you will, that goes up along the side of the house. Been involved with Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and also vice president of the Papillion La Vista trap team. Throughout the years, we've used our camper for Scouts. We've used it for the trap team. Tomorrow we are leaving to State Trap down in Donovan, and we will be there throughout the week. That is that is what we use for the kids to come for, for medical reasons, gun issues, and the team just kind of meets around there. With my son being a senior, and we were really starting to look at, do we really want to have this camper? Do we want to continue within the youth organizations and having the fun that we do? I'd like to maybe have an amendment where if you have an existing pad, I came down here and got the permit and spent the money for the concrete pad for the camper to go on. If I can't do that, maybe it's time to do something else. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr.
Sir,
Mumgard.
Yeah, okay, you brought up Eagle Ridge. Now, that's a relatively new area of housing. Do you have covenants there?
I believe it.
It was built in 96.
So, yeah, the covenants is passed.
Say this again, the covenants?
The covenants, I believe, is 10 years. So, it was, our house was built in 99.
Okay, so you're telling me that the Eagle Ridge covenants have expired?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
We could be annexed.
Thank you.
My trailer is 27 foot.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is John Harshberger, and I've lived in Papillion for about 15 years, and my 2 stepkids have both graduated through the school system here in Papillion. You know them, Mr. Mayor. Mark, could I use this overhead projector? Thank you. My camper is currently about 33 feet long, and we just purchased another new one. We traded our old one in. It's retail value about $33,000. We want to take care of it by keeping an eye on our property and maintaining it and keeping the rodents out of it. I do know an incident where a guy actually took his trailer to a lot and parked it there, where they actually stole his TVs out of there, which is a damage. They didn't just take the TVs, they took part of the cabinetry with that.
If you lay your image on there, it should come up on the screen.
Okay. What I wanted to bring across is how we can park our camper in our driveway.
like, well, most people don't have the driveway that we have. If you look to the side, this is in reverse of my house, where we actually have our garage right here in the front. But on this side here, we actually have a 6-foot fence, and down there we have a storage. I'm sorry, we can go over here. We got a storage garage similar to this, and it's a 10 by 12 storage garage where you store several vehicles in there. They're actually motorcycles, but we have pavement going all the way up to this, so we can actually put our 33-foot camper approximately right here behind the house through here. On the side of our house is about a hedge roll that runs, probably 30 feet in the air. We have to trim off every year because they belong to our neighbor and they kind of grow over our fence. But, and that goes to Mumgard's question, if we should treat the back or I'm going to say the deep side of the house different from the front, I think yes. That way our offset is back there. You can't even see our camper. When we was sighted, Judy told my wife, well, yeah, I seen the camper parked in your front driveway. That's how I knew you had it. And she stopped and sighted us when it was actually parked in the back. So, but that's all I had to say. Other than where are the people at that are against us having our campers parked in the driveway? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Frank Polton-Havachis, 807 Monarch Circle. I got a Class C, it's 31 feet. And I basically got the pad on the side of the house. Nobody already sees it. It's got a generator on it too, which in case we lose power, we got elderly neighbors around. And if it gets hot, we call them over, turn the air conditioner on, they're comfortable. Kind of 2 birds, 1 stone. The other thing is I know, Steve, you got a camper right down the street from you, a couple of houses, don't you? Is that an eyesore to you?
Yeah, I have it. It's not out. It's the base of my cul-de-sac. It's actually on East Pat. Yeah, there's
is that trailer an eyesore to you?
Well, let me put it this way. Just like I said earlier, it's a quality of life issue. Does it affect my quality of life? No. Does it affect their neighbors? I don't know. They've never contacted me, but it's a rental house, so perhaps that's why. But
I want to clarify, the public hearing is for us to take testimony, not for question and answer. Thank you.
But at the same time, like I said, you also got Facebook coming. A lot of the employees from Facebook will be a bunch of young techies. They're like their little toys to move into town with. And I imagine some of them will have RVs or trailers and stuff like that. Do you want to discourage them from coming? Just a couple thoughts there.
Thank you.
And the other thing, eyesore, I could turn around and say basketball net in some of these driveways is an eyesore to me where I can't see the sunset. So, it's people's perspective. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Clarence DeVos, I'm known as D. I love Papillion. I've been living here since 1987. And I've done everything I possibly can to show my appreciation, how I care about Papillion. Now it's time for Papillion to care about me. I have a Class A RV. I noticed on the paper said no Class A RV. But when I moved into my neighborhood, the guy down the street has a Class A RV, and I didn't think anything of it would prohibit to have it here or not. But my problem is, at this time, I'm very handicapped right now, and if I have to move my RV to a storage place, that's going to be pretty tremendous burden on me. I'm a 100% disabled veteran, served my country for 26 years. And I just appreciate you consider me keeping my RV there at my house, because the computers are on my RV. You have to have electrical to it. If you don't have no electrical, every time I go out there, I can't I won't be able to start the vehicle up. My hands, both my hands are numb from my fingertip to my elbows. Can't untie my shirt, can't tie my shoes. So that created a really hardship for me if I had to move my RV. We only here, we're gone for about 5 months out of the year because the cold is so cold here. We can't hardly stand the cold. My wife is a retired school teacher from Bellevue, and she has a lot of medical problems also. So we leave here in November, and we usually return in April. And then we keep it in the yard. 2002, we laid a 50 feet driveway so that we could, one day we was going to buy an RV in the future. But at that time, we went ahead and we got it all laid out to driveway and wired everything so that we can have it when we retired. But unfortunately, I didn't know I was going to get sick like this. So I was just unable to take my RV to no storage place. The RV cost over $200,000. And if you get mouse and stuff in there, or if they eat up the electrical, it's shot. And that's all my life saving that we put into it. And it's just be really, really a burden on me. So I should consider letting me keep my RV there in my driveway. It's out of the way. It's not bothering anybody. My neighbor and I, we all get along. They've known me for years. I used to go over there and do that snow and all that stuff when I was able to do that and help the old lady across the streets cut her grass, all that stuff. So I would greatly appreciate that you guys could allow me to keep my RV there. I really would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Marcia Ostrom. My husband and I moved to Papillion about 7 years ago. When we came, we had a Class A RV, and we're here a short time, and we got a letter in the mail saying that we had a complaint against us, and we needed to rectify the situation in 30 days to move the Class A RV, that they weren't allowed. So I talked with Brian Craig in the City Planning Department. He was very helpful. He sent us a letter in the mail outlining the ordinance for the RVs, and I kind of briefly discussed with him on the phone what was allowed, what wasn't allowed. And so we took our letter and we went RV shopping. We got rid of the Class A, which for a time we stored up in Blair. There wasn't any place here in Papillion at the time to store it. So bought a Class C. We have a 24.5-foot Class C. We park it in our front driveway. We've had it for about 3 years now. Last summer, we poured an additional pad to park it on, according to the ordinance. So I guess my biggest complaint is the fact that we went through all these steps to come into compliance with the ordinance that the city had, and now we are again going to be forced to be out of the ordinance. We have done everything accordingly. You know, we love Papillion, we do. We love the fact that, you know, you have great law enforcement. You know, I mean, everybody is just super down here. My husband wanted me to point out that a Dodge Ram Mega Cab pickup is 21.6 feet long. So it's like, we're at 24.5 feet. To address the backyard issue for us, we are on a corner lot. There's trees along the side. We couldn't get our RV in the backyard if we had to, so that wouldn't be an option. And going on the other side, our houses are too close, so we couldn't park. We couldn't go in that way either. And then again, to reiterate what everybody has said, you're not going to find a Class C RV 20 feet long. They don't exist because we've shopped. So I guess with all this, why are we changing the ordinance to make it more restrictive? When I guess for all these years, I'm not sure how long this particular ordinance has been in force, but you know, all of a sudden now we're out of compliance again. So anyway, I'd like you to consider that for us that do have the Class Cs and have been in compliance with your decision. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question for you. Yeah, we are considering that. And in fact, one of the amendments would allow, as I understand it, someone like you to come in and tell the city that you have this and that you are legal and that you're trying to follow the ordinance.
Right.
And the city would give you a permit to keep it there. You could keep it there until you move, or you could keep it there until you decide to sell it. Would such a, and okay, there's 2 time periods that have been talked about, that you'd have to come in within the first year, or maybe you'd have to come in within the first 180 days. Let's assume sometime within the next 180 days, you'd have to come in and tell the city you've got this and get a permit. You could then leave your camper there because you've been following the ordinance.
Right.
Would that satisfy what you need to do?
Well, no, because actually my husband and I have been talking about upgrading. You know, we just retired. We sold our business like a week ago. So now we have an 08. We're thinking we'd like to get a 16. It has a little more features that we really want. So if we do that, then in the next 6 months, we're out of luck. We can't park it at our home. So, you know, that's kind of, we came into compliance with kind of an agreement with the letter I got from the gentleman from the city, and coming into compliance, okay, we're good, you know, and now all of a sudden that's going to become more restrictive. You know, really, it's.
Okay, well, let me put this out. Let me get your view on it. One of the philosophies behind the permit system would be that this allows you to make decisions based on what you know the rules are. And so the talk has been, well, okay, this permit would have to be personal to that vehicle, because if you then sell that and get another one, that's a new decision.
But it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same brand, same length, it's just going to be upgraded.
So you think that if you get a permit for a Class B, you ought to continue to park any future Class Bs there, even if you just upgrade and change it?
Well, I believe so.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of changing midstream of what you've been doing for years.
Well, I can tell you that that's something that the committee has been discussing with council members, and I don't think any answer has come up. So thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Anybody else?
Steve Strom. I'm kind of new at this. We only moved into, we're in an SID. So we're within the Planning Commission. A little less than a year ago. So this is all new to me. I think this is the 3rd meeting that I've attended, including one for the Planning Commission and one for the City Council meeting. And
If you've come to 3 meetings, including a Planning Commission meeting, in the short time you've been here, you've probably been to more meetings than most residents of Papillion. So thank you for being involved.
Well, I want to point out, and that was one of my points.
I was a little facetious, but not totally,
yeah.
so thank you.
But I would reckon to say that most of these people are your constituents. And what I've seen at these meetings is, well, 60 years ago when I was on the farm, yeah, I am that old, more than that, but anyway, we had sheep, and we had one OU that wore the bell. And if she got through the fence, they all got through the fence. And one day I was so mad, and a 9-year-old chased them damn things, excuse my French, for 3 miles down a county road. Could not get in front of them to turn them. And if it wasn't for a neighbor coming down the other direction from that county road in his car, I'd still be chasing them to this day. But my point is this: when 1 or 2 of you people decide that we're going with this proposals, I've seen it 3 times now, you all decide. I'm not comparing you to sheep, but I am comparing you to sheep. When I believe that somebody thinks the other way, they should do that. You know, I worked in a place, I'm retired now, of course, for over 40 years, same place, same job. And we used to have a saying there. If you don't want to hear what we have to say, don't ask us, because we'll tell you just exactly what we think. So this is how I'm thinking. If you want to vote the other way instead of voting the way of some council members in approving this, then I ask, go ahead and vote that way. It won't kill you. Friendships never end over that, at least not in my day they wouldn't. So I'm just saying that this is the most obscene council amendments I've ever seen. They don't make a camper, except for maybe some fold downs that are less or more than 20 feet, period. We just traded a 15 that was 30 feet for a 17, 26 feet, because we lost some kids and we don't need the room. Just me, the missus, and the big dog. That's all that's there now. And I mean big dog. So anyway, I just ask that maybe you consider voting against this and not consider about some people making statements that they're an eyesore, because I'm going to invite each and every one of you to stop by and see my 2017 eyesore, if you like. It's got all the modern amenities, just what I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I'm short. Bob Wonders, 26.3 Southampton Division. I think it's got a covenant for a brick face on the front of the house. Now, an ordinance is supposed to be for safety and ugly. Am I wrong, right? And every time I get referring, you refer to a safety commission checking into this. Unless Chief Lyons can tell me otherwise, I don't know of any camper parked in somebody's driveway that has hurt somebody. Now, if there is an eyesore, understand. Not a pet peeve. A safety issue where it could be blocking visibility for drivers, understand. But you people are talking about campers sitting in somebody's driveway, and you spent less time talking about kids' safety and a bridge. You guys got to step it up to what you were elected to do.
Thank you. Next.
Okay. My name's Carissa Thacker, and I have a 26-foot camper. My family, I'm a full-time working mom. My husband is active duty military. Kids fully active in sports, soccer, dance, like we're everywhere. So our family time is camping. And I happen to live by someone who came over to my house this week and told me that my camper was an eyesore, who happens to also be on the board. It was in the driveway for 5 days total. We store our camper on base. There is no storage in Papillion for a camper. So for us to drive 30 minutes to Bellevue, 30 minutes back, it's hard to do while trying to juggle a full-time job, sports, kids, everything else. So I think my problem would be that the loading, unloading, I tried explaining that, there is maintenance, like everybody else here has said, you gotta, start of the year, you gotta seal the camper, you gotta load it, you gotta unload it, you gotta restock it. That stuff has to be done if you wanna go camping. And we're leaving it tomorrow to go to a soccer tournament and a marathon, up in Lincoln, towing it to Bellevue for 4 days just doesn't make sense. So that's my complaint.
Mr. Mumgard.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So personally attacked is how I felt, and I just think it was more personal than, I mean, an eyesore. It's a nice camper. It's not a bad camper. It's not blocking the road. It's not blocking anything. It's just, I happen to live next to the guy that doesn't like the eyesore, so.
Next, please.
Gentlemen, I use that loosely. I've been a member of Papillion for over approximately 57 years. Been camping for over 50 years. I've had numerous campers. I finally went to a motorhome in '88 and a new one in 2000, and I'm back to a fifth wheel. I've served the Papillion Fire Department for 25 years and law enforcement for 5 as a part-time deputy. And now you tell me that I can't have my fifth wheel in my driveway where I can get out and go anytime I please. I'm 78 years old, and when I want to go, I go. If I don't, I don't. And this is stupid. I've seen some things in Papillion that's happened over the 50 years, been rotten, but this is the worst one. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
I'm not on the list. I'm Donald Cavanis. I also live in Eagle Ridge. And I don't know the exact status of the homeowner association, but when we moved to Eagle Ridge, checking the rules, we were perfectly legal in having our trailer. And at that time, you could have your trailer parked in your driveway from, I believe it was the 1st of April till the 1st of October. I personally do not park my trailer in my driveway. I happen to have a 36-foot trailer. The reason I have that is because being retired, 15 years ago, we decided we would go south for the winter. Going south for the winter sometimes causes problems because you have to look at the weather, not only in Nebraska, but all the way down to Texas where we go. So in effect, when you talk about and I often wondered what one occurrence means, and the 48 hours, because I park my trailer in a storage spot, if you have a snow, it's sometimes difficult to coordinate your time you go to where you're going, and then the weather to get it out of the storage spot, then the weather on the highway going all the way down to Texas. And so sometimes in the earlier days when we've had some hellacious snowstorms, which we hardly have in Nebraska, except more recently with the weather changes, and I'm an ex-weatherman out at the Air Force Base. The 48 hours can be difficult. And it also can be a little bit difficult working all the timing. And my guess is my wife is wondering where I am. So in regard to that, and I just checked and it is her, I would ask that you, because I don't keep my trailer on the driveway, I just bring it there when I load it and unload it. You need the time, as you've heard from various people, to do all that work. And because we go away for several months, it's not just a matter of putting some water or whatever, and needs to say I don't put water in it in the wintertime when I go. And then when you come back, you have the same issue. So we're talking about quality of life again, and you almost got us to the point now where it's extremely difficult to enjoy having an RV. And the last thing I'd like to comment on is I walk our dog a lot to get exercise in the neighborhood. And whether you know it or not, there's at least a half a dozen people in Eagle Ridge that I've talked to, and they've held off on even considering buying or enjoying an RV with their family because of all this controversy and what's going on. So it's just not my quality of life and the people here. There's other people that are in the same situation that they're considering what they should be doing in the future.
1 minute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Back, but I just Mark Flott again, and I just wanted to reiterate, I'm a 18-year resident to city of Papillion. I did do the research work like you people were saying, and I lived in Old Town. I'm in Old Town Papillion. I did check the things, and at that time, you could have an RV. And so that's one reason why that did steer me to the city of Papillion. They were RV friendly. Also, like somebody of the other real estate people here says, I do have many people that I show houses. The first question they say, is this RV friendly? It's Papillion. I say, heck yes. I go, they got Walnut Creek. Not one camper last week in that Walnut Creek could stay in somebody's driveway for over 48 hours. And generally that's packed, and that's, City of Papillion supports that. I mean, that's yours. You hear people here, that's what Papillion, Walnut Creek, that's, that's how would I say, the flagship for the area, for the community. I mean, and here right now, you guys are condemning people with RVs. And then the biggest thing is, like I said, is I went from I have a pole behind, and now I have a fifth wheel, and it's 28 feet, and it's a smaller one. And you've heard the people here. It's unreasonable because I work for a living. I have a hell of a time getting here at 7 o'clock at night, and I've tried to make it through multiple city council meetings. I got to work. I got to survive. And it's tough for me to. This 48-hour thing, it'd be tough for me to satisfy that because it takes me a week just to, when I pull it there, get ready to go someplace. We go, like people have mentioned, 8 times a year. I'm asking just be fair to people. I mean, you got to be fair to your residents. And, the people will respect you, but if you don't be fair to people, they're not going to respect you. And in today's America, you don't want politicians, it's so bad on the national level. You don't want to be on that level. And then I heard somebody say, well, and it's nothing wrong, but I heard somebody make the comment, well, it has to do with your neighbors. And if they want to complain about you, no, it's not. People here, the reason why they're here is because they want to do the right thing. They want to be honest. You don't want to live in a society that it's okay as long as you don't get caught. Come on, people. This is America. Be honest. And again, try to get the respect. You want to have the respect for your constituents. So again, I'm just asking again, the biggest thing is for me, a lot of times I don't store it at my site. So my biggest thing is it's hard for me to do any maintenance on it. It'd be unreal. It's unreal to recognize, say, 48 hours. I couldn't do it. And everybody on my block, nobody complains. The people because I ask. I distinctly asked, well, you guys have any issues with it? And so, again, I asked, the people who are in the newer subdivisions, and what the zoning was, it's hard to say. I can't, you're moving the place, what's there, it's hard to, I can't say anything. But I did check. So again, I'm asking to be fair to people. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Yeah.
My name is Ryan Haruska. I live in Papillion. I've been here for 9 years. Purchased a travel trailer 3 years ago. This is our third season just starting. We've been out 47 times. We do, believe it or not, camp at Walnut Creek a lot, even though we live here. I just want to say I don't agree at all with putting classifications on the RVs and the parking limits. I think as long as the camper or RV is any safety issues or visibility issues, if it's along the side of a house or behind a house or even in a driveway, if it's not hurting anything, I don't see a reason why it couldn't sit there. Surrounding cities, Ralston, La Vista, and Bellevue all do permit.
Let's hold the side conversations, please.
All do permit RV parking. They do have rules and regulations. They have to be on a hard surface. I do live on a corner lot. I do have my camper in the driveway right now. I've been waiting to hear final decision whether or not I would pour a pad along the house or behind the house to park behind the house itself. So other than that, that's the only thing I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Right now I have a 35-foot travel trailer. We're looking to upgrade to a 41-foot fifth wheel.
Thank you. Any others?
Good evening. My name's Guy Reynolds. I live in an SID in Shadow Lake. I don't have a camper, but I've been on the SID board and have had to deal with people's complaints. So I have three things to talk about. And other folks have mentioned this. What is the purpose of the ordinance? What are you trying to control? And my cautionary tale is, my wife would cut the ends off the ham and bake it. I ask her why. Her mother did it. Ask her mother. Well, my mother did it. And you ask the grandmother, and she says, I could never afford to buy a pan big enough to bake a ham, so I had to cut the ends off for it to fit. So it's not clear to me that we know why we're using this ordinance or discussing it at all. Second issue is telling me how often I can use my personal property. If I want to bring my RV daily to my house to do something and take it back to storage, that's my property. I own it. I don't think it's within your power to restrict me on how often I can bring a vehicle onto my property at all. Third one is SID folks communicate a lot now. Covenants get enforced until the developer leaves. So about the 5-year point, developer doesn't spend any more money, so then you have a 20-year gap. And there's no stomach to form homeowners associations. So the mayor's hotline has become retaliatory. People know that. So, developer won't act, no homeowners association, I'll call the hotline. And then the emails go out, and then the next thing you know, you can have 700 complaints because people are coordinating. So you have to take the anonymity out of it. I need to know who my accuser is. Maybe I don't need to know, but you need to know for the background so you can sort through it. So modern technology, has made this work. A couple things to think about. You sign subdivision agreements with all SIDs, and that's kind of fire and forget. You never go back to it. So why don't you make the subdivision covenants and the SID agreements line up with your regulations so we don't have homeowners association rules, covenants rules, and then all of a sudden I'm in an SID inside your zoning district and I don't get any services, but I get the code inspector poking me in the eye for something. You charge me 10% more for water, can't use the library without a fee, but then somebody's telling me how I can, handle my RV. It gets very frustrating.
Mr. Mumgard.
Yeah, I've got a question about your covenants. At Shadow Lake, well, they have covenants, don't they?
They have covenants. They're perpetual. There's 16 lots left, and the developer said, It's not worth me spending any more money enforcing covenants.
What do your
I'm done.
covenants in Shadow Lake say about parking campers and RVs on
You can
on
have it for
residential
14
property?
days twice a year.
Otherwise, you can't have it there.
Correct. So again, that's where folks look to the more restrictive regulation and then call the mayor's hotline. And
Well,
it's typically
okay.
people that
Have-
don't want RVs in the neighborhood.
Have you, as a board member, have you had residents come forward and complain about campers there that seem to violate your covenants?
There is no homeowners association,
I get that, yeah.
and the developer will not enforce the covenants.
And so the only way to enforce a covenant is for one homeowner to sue another homeowner.
Or call the mayor's hotline, because we're inside the
Okay.
zoning district.
Okay, well.
The city doesn't enforce the covenants. So if a covenant call came to the mayor's hotline,
That's
we
not
wouldn't
a
address
covenant
that.
call, but we're inside your zoning boundary.
Right, but he's talking covenant
Well,
enforcement.
here's my question. It seems that if you have covenants, those are the homeowners of that area
No.
making a decision.
No.
Well,
No,
let me explain how I get to that.
Okay.
Those are the developer making a decision as to what the people who buy his lots will want the rules to be. Those are covenants. And when you buy into that, you have accepted those are the rules. How is it that if Shadow Lake people who have bought into Shadow Lake and thereby accepted that rule, how is it that they would think that Papillion should have a different rule?
The covenants are only valuable if they're enforced. It's up to the developer to enforce them, and he won't.
Correct.
If
but-
the people, it's
But-
up to the residents now to establish a homeowners association, and there's not enough votes to get that done. So now, since the developer won't act, there is not a homeowners association to enforce it. People that want to spend the money to sue their neighbor, we're inside I think it's the 2-mile zoning buffer, so all Papillion ordinances apply to us. So people call the mayor's hotline and you have to act.
Well, let me give you an example. I also live in an area that has covenants which prohibit this kind of parking and does not have a homeowners association. So the only way to stop somebody from violating that covenant is to sue them, have one homeowner sue another. I have found with my neighbors, they don't want to do that. They don't want to be the ones to sue their neighbor. I understand that. They don't want to get on the bad side of a neighbor. So they turn to people like me, representatives of the city, to have the city be the bad guy and step in and do something that they have agreed, they have all collectively agreed shouldn't be allowed. Why is it a bad thing for people in that situation, such as Shadow Lake, to turn to the city to stop something that they all have agreed should not happen?
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm answering your question as to why people turn to the city. It's because all the other mechanisms don't work.
And why is that bad?
My point was...
Or why should the city not step in and help them?
My point was the mayor's hotline is becoming a way to retaliate when folks do not want to sue and they want to remain anonymous.
On the retaliation point, Mr. Ingberg did give the update that we have fixed that issue.
Yep.
Or we made a policy change to attempt to fix
I agree that
it.
retaliation is not a good idea. That's not neighborly.
Specifically to answer your question, most people that I've found that talk about it want it fixed, but they're not willing to be public and to take action. So they look to someone else to do it.
Okay, and tell me why I should not feel then that I'm properly representing the general viewpoint of the people who live with those kinds of covenants and who have paid their money for property subject to those covenants, if they turn to me and say, would you please step in and stop this?
You don't represent me. I don't elect anybody on this board.
But you're right. But if I'm in a similar situation
Right.
as your people, I have people who have bought into covenants, paid money for houses subject to covenants that say thou shalt not do this, and they don't want to sue their neighbor, so they turn to me and say, would the city please be the bad guy and stop this? Why is that? Why should I not do what they want me to do?
And again, I didn't take a position as to whether the ordinance was good or bad. My point is, this is an example of where people are using the mayor's hotline. And it's also the Pandora's box, because it can be anything, any ordinance.
Yeah.
Another common one is dogs. Sarpy County, you don't have to clean up dog waste. Papillion, you have to. So routinely people see dogs pooping in their yard, and they call the hotline. So my bottom line point is, in the zoning buffer with SIDs, your ordinances apply, people are figuring that out, and when they get frustrated, they turn to the mayor's hotline. And with communication, I think you're going to get a lot more of that.
Well, okay, and I thank you for your answers, because I'll tell you, as an SID board member, that's a, I mean, that's a no thanks, no thanks job too. So thank you for doing it.
You just learned to say no.
Thank you.
Thank you very
much.
much.
Best of luck to you.
Next, please.
Hi, I didn't sign the paper. I wasn't going to speak, but I want to say a couple things. Tammy Champion, and we have a 26-foot trailer. I think everything's very simplified to say, again, as several people have mentioned, what is the purpose of the ordinance? Do we have beautification ordinances? I know we have some codes for certain things that present safety and general welfare of the public. I would love anybody to give me an example of how a camper sitting on my driveway, 17 feet away from the sidewalk in my front driveway, creates any safety issue for anybody. It has been there for the 11 and a half years we've been in Papillion, and only because of this stir-up last year that happened was all those kind of, we'll call them false complaints, if you will, sparked all this to happen. I also want to mention the fact that redefinition with this 20-foot rule, reclassifying my trailer as a commercial heavy vehicle, which is, that was why it cannot be parked on a residential lot. It seems very unfair that, you know, home-based businesses can have these big trucks parked there. They can have two, one on the street and one on their driveway. Is that safer than my camper in the driveway? Because ordinances are supposed to be for public welfare and safety. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Dan Elder, and I believe I'm your 24th opponent behind 0 proponents, and I think all the other opponents got tired and left. Mr. Jaworski, we have a 2-year-old, we bought it brand spanking new, 17 FQ, that's a 17-foot cabin with a queen bed, but from hitch to bumper, it's about 21 feet. So it's illegal, and it does have an operating bathroom with a flush toilet and a shower. And we don't have the big boy campers like these guys do, but we hope to get there one day. We're very proud of the unit. We do not have a slab on our yard, and we do not normally park the trailer there. We have a storage unit out by Sapp Brothers, but we bring it back to de-winterize it, to get it ready for trips. I recently brought it back. Now, I'm going to tell you this, and this is a public property issue versus private property, but I told you how long the trailer is. From hitch to bumper, it's 21 feet. I parked it in front of my house on the street, keeping in mind that if the property lines went out into the street, I was parked between the property line and the approach to my driveway. No problems. I brought that home a week ago Sunday on April 23rd. 2 days later, on April 25th, I got this, and it was noted for overtime parking. Now, I had a very pleasant conversation with a Papillion Police Department patrol lieutenant, got some information from him, worked it out, but it was on public property, not a private property issue. I brought the trailer into the driveway. Wasn't my first choice, but I didn't think it was really causing any problems. It's no wider than the Dodge Durango that I used to tow the trailer. I disagree with Mr. Engberg and Mr. Mumgard. I do not believe that this is a quality of life issue. I do not believe that these are eyesores. Your names, gentlemen, by the way, come up more than anybody else's in the RV users group. I don't know that that's germane or if it's coincidental. I know that both of you, I believe respectively, have been city councilmen for a quarter century, 23 years, and maybe there's an attachment to this ordinance. I was one of the speakers at the Planning Commission meeting, and what I pointed out to them was very widely received by those commissioners, and I pointed out that unlike what you two believe, the presence of RVs, in my mind, projects a community that enjoys the outdoors, camping, family, leisure time, and at least to a degree, in some cases to a large degree with these very expensive RVs, it shows there's a lifestyle that allows the residents to enjoy and afford that type of environment. I think the presence of RVs is actually positive for the city of Papillion. A lot of people have mentioned many things. I don't want to belabor it, but I find it interesting that Papillion will gladly take your money to issue a permit to let you put cement in alongside your yard, but they don't tell you you can't park your RV there because it's against the ordinance, or it could even be considered criminal. People brought up Walnut Creek. I find it very interesting. Papillion controls Walnut Creek camping, the camping facilities, and allows all RVs of all lengths, motorhomes, trailers, yet you can't park those on your private property. So does that tells me that Papillion is catering to non-residents and punishing their residents. And I think that to me makes absolutely no sense. The whole issue about the time, the number of times you can bring your trailer back to your property to load or unload, and the number of hours that you're limited to, I agree with everything that everybody else said, that you're trying to tell me how often I can go on vacation or how often I can go camping. You're telling me how long it takes me to de-winterize my little tiny 17-foot trailer with the single axle and a running bathroom. Okay, that is not right, and that is not what any city should be about. I would like to think that this city council will not ignore that the Planning Commission voted unanimously to reject this amendment and to recommend to the city council to reject the amendment. And there were two commissioners at that meeting, and I'm sure it's taped, there were two commissioners that both openly said they see no reason for this ordinance at all.
1 minute.
Okay? I am asking you to vote against this amendment. I'm further asking you to repeal the ordinance. Repeal the ordinance. If you have to replace it, consult the RV users group and work on replacing it with an RV-friendly ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. It's a pleasure being here, that you allow us to come before you and bring up our questions and things. One short note is, I assume you received the Planning Commission's report and their findings. Mr. Mumgard just made a statement. Why should Papillion be different? You are being different. The question at the Planning Commission was put forth, what are the surrounding areas ordinances to recreational vehicles? The length is 43 feet. You're trying to drop it to 20 feet? That is Papillion trying to be different. If they'd have brought something down within reason, there probably wouldn't have been very many here. But to drop it that low is beyond RV standards. 43 feet is what the majority of the surrounding areas, the towns are.
I'm not sure we got your name. Can you restate it?
Harold Ewing.
Thank you.
I didn't get your sheet signed.
Oh, that's fine.
UHING. But that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others?
Good evening. My name is Brian Schofield. I've lived in Papillion for about 10 years now. I have a 1968 Appleby 8-foot pop-up camper. Doesn't mean crap for in here, but my wife will not go camping with me. You know my wife, Mayor. She wants something a little bigger. Well, we have grandkids and we have children which are all in the military. I'm retired military. And they're throughout the country here, down in Georgia, Colorado, all these different places. We want to go and visit them. But I'll just use my daughter and son-in-law in Georgia. They have a 3-bedroom house. They just had twins. They have a 3-year-old. I'm not staying in that house at night, every night. So we want to get a camper, a nice, and I was out in Colorado I just got back about 2 hours before this meeting started. And I was looking there for a small fifth wheel. Smallest fifth wheel I could find that would work for us was about 26 feet. Then I said, okay, let's look at the Mini Winnies, which the one which we looked at had dual axles, which was 22 feet. And I'm going, I can't get any of these. Nothing will work for me here in Papillion. You know, actually, the way the planning director showed it when we had the meeting with the planning commission, where you could have your camper behind your house and that works fine for me because I have my house, I have my garage, I have a huge driveway which goes up the back, so probably I can get by with it legally. But I don't want to be on that way. I've been in law enforcement for over 30 years, and I still work for the university in law enforcement. I like to follow the rules, but you guys are making it impossible for me to follow the rules. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any others?
My name is Kent Garman. I own a Rockwood Rue 183. That's an 18-foot or 18 feet 3 inches on the body, but under this current ordinance proposed, it would violate that ordinance because it's approximately 22 to 23 feet from bumper to tongue. And as I've heard everyone talk, I think you guys have heard basically one camper that falls under the 20-foot rule. A couple things that are central to me. One, I noticed that, you know, the current ordinance, from what I've heard, we have on the books, it's enforced limitedly or selectively only when a complaint is lodged. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe someone said there was maybe 8 complaints over 2 years. So that's roughly 4 complaints a year. My question is I guess, why are we enforcing ordinance that's restrictive and we're not enforcing it consistently and only selectively? That's a central issue. Another central issue, you're essentially telling me that I can't park my property or my possessions on my property. So, Mr. Mumgard, you know, you asked, should we take in consideration for whether it's parked on the side of the house, in the back of the house, or on the driveway? In my opinion, the answer is absolutely not, unless it's posing a public safety threat. And an example of that would be an RV sticking out into a sidewalk, into the street, somebody's tripping, something like that. If it's parked away from the street and done so safely, I don't see how this is an issue. If we want to go down the path of saying it's an eyesore, I'm sorry, but come on, I can drive through any neighborhood in this city. I can find 20 different examples of eyesores. I have one across the street from me My neighbor is a reverend. He's got some siding that's completely rotted through. Code enforcement doesn't stop by his house and fine him. They don't point that out. He doesn't have to address it unless he's able to financially do so. So the eyesore test doesn't really hold well with me. Really just what I'm confused about is, you know, we're putting time limits on. In the proposals, we don't specify what the time limits are. It's just a specified time. So it's pretty vague and leaves open a lot of interpretation. I'm also confused as to why we continue to have this discussion when it's been previously voted down twice. Those are just a few things for you guys to think about as you go forward. I hope that you vote this down. Wish you best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Again, next City Council meeting, May 16th, will be the third reading. That's when City Council will have discussion and debate. And any individual council member can bring amendments forward at that meeting. Next on the agenda, item E2, Ordinance 1774. An ordinance to approve the change of zone of certain real property within the zoning jurisdiction of the City of Papillion, Sarpy County, Nebraska, legally described as being a replatting of Lot 86, outlots D, F, G, H, and I, Ashbury Creek. A subdivision is surveyed, platted, and recorded in Sarpy County, Nebraska, together with the north half of the southwest quarter of Section 32, Township 14 North, Range 12 east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located southwest of 114th Street and Highway 370, from agricultural AG to multifamily residential R4, to amend the official zoning map of the City of Papillion by changing the zoning district boundaries of the zoning map in accordance with Section 20532 of the Papillion Municipal Code to provide for an effective date. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Do we have any proponents? Welcome.
Hi. Good morning.
First of all, I want to apologize that we didn't move you ahead on the agenda. I'm sorry.
Apology accepted. Pat Hillier, representing Ashbury Creek LLC. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? I'll close the public hearing. Thank you. Next, item F1, Resolution R170075. Oh. If there's a representative of the RV group, that would be very appropriate. Item F1, Resolution R170075, a resolution to approve a real estate purchase agreement for the purchase of property, a private commercial property generally located at 15402 South 87th Street with Ferrogas LP for the purpose of potential future water plant expansion. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R170075? Motion by Councilman Ingberg, second by Councilman Florence. Do we have any proponents? Any opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote. Oh, Mr. Stubbe.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
I was going to go too fast.
That's all right. Everybody wants to go home, huh? This one and the second item, I just want to let you know that I'm going to support these, but I do have real concerns with regard to any future expansion of the plant. Obviously, we've got some significant debt, and that's something that I think we should really focus in on. So I'm going to support these, but obviously when we get to a point where consideration is given to expanding the plant, I'm going to have some real questions about that.
And I think that's a valid point, that the scope of this is just to protect the land for the potential if we need to. It is not a commitment for an expansion. So good point. Thank you. Any other council discussion? Please vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F2, Resolution R170076. A resolution to approve a real estate purchase agreement for the purchase of private agricultural property with John and Phyllis Krebs for the potential future expansion of the city's water treatment plant. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R170076? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Stubbe. Any proponents? Any opponents? Council discussion, will carry the same comment forward. Please vote.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F3, Resolution R170077. A resolution to approve a lease agreement with John and Phyllis Krebs for the lease of certain real property for the purpose of farming. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R170077? Motion by Councilman Stubbe, second by Councilman Jaworski. Any proponents? Any opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F4, Resolution R170081, a resolution to approve a temporary easement acquisitions for 114th Street from Cornhusker Road to Centennial Road in the amount of $2,400. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R170081? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Glover. We do need a motion to amend Resolution R170081 to change one payment not to exceed $2,400 to two payments not to exceed $2,500. Is there a motion by Councilman Ingberg? Second by Councilman Jaworski. Do we have proponents on the motion to amend? Opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote on the motion to amend.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion is amended. Do we have any proponents on the amended motion? Opponents? Council discussion? Please vote on the original motion as amended.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
Item F5, Resolution R170086, a resolution to approve Sarpy County's proposed sewer extension project to serve the area generally located at Highway 50 north of Capehart Road, Project Raven. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R170086? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Do we have proponents? Opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
That's all the regular agenda items. No committees have met in the last couple of weeks. Do we have any comments from the floor? Seeing none, any council comments? Mr. Mumgard.
Councilmember Florence has asked that we have a public safety committee meeting at some time before the next city council meeting, so I would request that you set that up.
We will do that. Any other comments? Do we have motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilman Stubbe. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Please vote. Mr. Stubbe.
7 yeas.
We are adjourned.